Authors Press.
Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. And on the line with us today, we have Mitra Das. We'll be discussing her fantastic poetry book, Rhythms Primeval. If you guys want to gather everything that Maya has to offer, do yourself a favor and head directly to her personal sites. Now, there's two of them I'm going to list for you. The first one is author mayamitradas.com. So that's traditional spelling of author. MAYAMITRADAS.com. And then the other site is mayamitra.com. Same spelling that I just gave. So one more time, that's author mayamitradas.com and mayamitra.com. And at each of those sites, not only will you find more information about Maya herself, you'll find more information on this fantastic poetry book, Rhythms Primeval, but you'll also find information as well as hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing page for her other book as well. And guys, I will say that Maya was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business, Authors Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact Authors Press. And you can find out more information on them at authorspress.com. So without further ado, let's go right into it. Maya, first and foremost, welcome back to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, Maya, listen, it was such a pleasure having you on the first time that we had to invite you back again the second. Now, for our listening audience members that may have missed out on that first interview, let's start with a little more background information on yourself. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background, Maya.
I'm Maya. My full name is Maya Mitra Das, and I am an MD and PhD. I'm a physician and scientist, now retired. I studied internal medicine and pediatrics in India, England, and United States, came to US in 1973, received training at Downstate Medical Center, State University Hospital in Brooklyn, New York, and completed 2 fellowships, one for the Department of Hematology and Oncology at UCLA Medical Center, second at University of California, San Francisco for radiation oncology. I was medical staff at Children's Hospital, and I work in the field involving sickle cell anemia. I authored number of scientific publications. Other than my profession, I have hobbies. One of my hobbies is writing. I play Western classical music and piano, and I'm also a dancer. I dance Indian classical dance, Bharatanatyam. That, in short, my background.
Fantastic. There you go. And what an impressive background that it is, Maya. You know, I remember last time we had you here, and I made a comment, something along the lines of, we needed to invite you back on, not to discuss your book, but really just to talk about your background, because it is so eclectic and so impressive. And, you know, now we invited you back, but it was to discuss another one of your books. So I'm going to say it again, Maya. We're going to have to invite you back on for a third time, not to discuss your book, but just to discuss your background. Because I'm sure you have stories for days, and we'd love to hear them. But for today's interview, it's all about Rhythms Primeval. So without further ado, tell us a little bit more about your book.
My teacher is Jerry Ball. Dr. Ball has received many awards, including Grand Prize for Haiku, awarded for the Yukiteki Haiku Society of Canada and United States. Jerry was an actor, dramatist, opera singer, instructor of philosophy, mathematics, humanities, and religion. I met Jerry in a class where he introduced me to world opera. He encouraged me to join his poetry class, promising that he would guide me to write in this new genre. I was very skeptical and nervous. I said, oh no, I cannot write poetry. But he insisted, and then he said that you come and I will guide you in this genre. So when I entered in his class, I was very nervous. But then through his guidance, I found out that what a wonderland I entered. And Jerry is no more, but he would say there is no escape from you right now.
Now, Maya, I'm curious, through this class, was this your introduction to poetry? Were you already interested in poetry prior to that? Talk to us about that inspiration and really what pushed you down the road to become a poet. I wrote most probably in school. Everybody writes poetry because the teachers, force you to write, some poetry in the class. But then I just forgot about it. I'm been exposed to poetry because we always respect our poet who is a Nobel laureate. He's no more. He passed away a long time ago. But every day, everywhere, we just have his poetry book with us. He has a famous book, Gitanjali, who is translated in English. And we quote always from that. So we have been brought up with those kind of culture. And poetry is always with us from the beginning when I was child to adult. We never stopped reading poetry. That was the exposure. But I never wrote poetry myself except in school. So somehow Jerry, when he almost forced me to come to attend his class, he asked me that yes, you can write, and then he said, it's easy. See, haiku, like you a dancer. I said, yeah. And said, what you do? I said, I entered the stage. So tell me, you enter your stage 1 foot on the stage, and what happens? Then I was thinking, what happens? The crowd applauds. So here you go, there is a poetry. So that was the start of my poetry. Maya, sticking with the concept of inspiration, but slightly changing it a bit. So we know what inspired you to write poetry. Well, what inspired you to put these books out for the public to partake in? Because you could have written your poetry and really kept it solely for you, but you didn't want to do that. You felt that putting it out for the public and having them be able to partake in it as well would also be beneficial. What inspired you to do that?
I was really new in this kind of, world, to publish. Actually, the poetry publication, Jerry used to put our poetry on the board, the institution he was teaching. So he will collect and will say, then I will get the best you write, and then I'll collect these poetries and put it on the board. And that's what it happens. And then from that institution, they just put an anthology for us. So that was the first publication.
Again, here in the line with Maya Mitra Das. We're discussing her fantastic book, Rhythms Primeval, available for purchase through her personal sites, author MayaMitraDas.com or MayaMitra.com. Maya, next question that I'd love to go to, and I need to hurry up and do this. I've held off long enough, but my listening audience is going to get upset if we don't start to hear some of your poetry. So without further ado, please, if you could read one of your poems for us, we would greatly appreciate that.
1,000 diamonds, raindrops on oak leaves in the haze of wintry sun. Thousand diamonds, raindrops on oak leaves in the haze of wintry sun. Next one. Through the quiet, the rock river comes closer with rounded softness. Through the quiet, the rocky river comes closer with rounded softness. Winter blows its horn, ghostly trees shiver and mourn. Afternoon light fades, evening slowly spreads. Loving fight of light and dark ends only in dark. The dark grows and gathers, trees coldly whisper the eternal silence. In dark and in cold, a soul searches the tragic, the beauty and the magic of longing to be loved, and through love makes its secrets known.
I love that. I absolutely love that. You know, I love the imagery that you use. I mean, your words are so descriptive, and the images that come to mind are so powerful. They're so vivid that I think that is the mark of, or at least for me and for my opinion, I think that's a mark of a great writer, but also in this instance, a fantastic poet. When you're able to lift the words off of the page and we as the reader can visibly see them in front of ourselves, there is something that is so profound and something that is incredible about that. Maya, curiosity for myself. So, of course, you're a poet, and we know that there are so many different forms of poetry out there. There's haikus, there's sonnets, there's blank verse. I mean, there's so many variations to it. Curiosity for myself, do you have a particular style of poetry that you generally gravitate towards?
Actually, you know what? It's interesting. Haiku, of course, I had to follow the rules, but not really, because Jerry said, you don't have to. I mean, it's 3 lines and you have to be on the moment. You know, that's what I just did it. Not that that's 5, 7, 5, always and he said, you don't have to. And then the poetry also, I wrote sonnet and all those things in the poetry class. But if I don't think about the form, I write better. It comes more freely from me that I'm writing without it considering anything. It flows, and it you know, I just somehow I just can. Though I have, you know, disciplined myself in the class to write a sonnet and do this that, but I don't think those poems I like it very much, because I made it myself, go through this, you know, all the rules and regulation, and don't want to do this, that. So I love this poet which just comes from me without any restriction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know, Maya, what I love about what you just said isn't that a great description of just art in and of itself? Art is open to interpretation. Now, yes, specifically with poetry and with this type of poetry, as you mentioned, you know, haikus have a very specific format, sonnets, very specific format, and so on and so forth. But coloring a little outside of the lines really brings art to life. And who is to say that just because you switch things a little bit, you don't keep it so confined that your art is any less worthy? I absolutely love what you just said, because artists everywhere can hear that and they're like, yep, I completely understand what she's talking about. And I've been there. I've been there. I absolutely
Thank you very
love that.
much.
You know, following off of that, another curiosity for myself, your book, Rhythms Primeval, as I stated when we first started this interview, and really just reiterating your words, it's filled with poems that cover emotions from all over the spectrum. I mean, you're going from human loneliness to love and everything in between. In terms of particular emotions or subject matter, is there anything that you necessarily gravitate towards that you like writing poetry more about?
I feel that I cannot gravitate just who I am and what I am feeling. Actually, the poetry is like the imagination. You are moving in the imagination, and then through imagination it just comes through. But there are, like you said, that there are some reason and the regulations and things like that. That is the quantity. I cannot say that this kind of feeling is right now coming, and just particular feelings I would write on the poetry, but just whatever, if I see something or suddenly remember, or I just go, flying in my fantasy, and I just write it down.
Maya, as we close out of this wonderful, wonderful interview, I can think of no better way to close out than with another one of your fantastic poems. So if you have another one readily available, please, we'd love to listen to it.
The winter arrives. The winter arrives silently. Mist wraps the trees. When wind blows gently, the silence that falls all night from the stars becomes a song. The song that swells in melodies in the sea surges up all day playfully. Now evening has come down on the shore. In fading light, the seabirds follow the song to their warm nest.
You know what I love so much about the poetry that Maya has written is, again, we've said it multiple times. I'm going to say it once again. I am so impressed. And what I love so much about the book is, again, that range of emotion. Not being afraid to really explore that loneliness, to explore depression, to explore sadness. So when you have books like this, when you have poetry like this, that isn't afraid to explore those opposite sides of the spectrum, there's so much to be gained. And you can just simply revel in it. And I think that is truly so much of where the power in Maya's books reside. So listen, you know what you have to do. Author MayaMitraDas.com and MayaMitra.com are the places you have to go. Rhythms Primeval is the title you have to pick up, but make sure you're also looking into Silhouettes of Time. And Maya Mitra Das is the author you have to thank for bringing these fantastic books to your table. Let's grow, let's develop, and let's educate ourselves. And let's explore new emotions. Maya, this has been truly an honor and such a pleasure. It is always a wonderful time having you as a guest. And until the next time, thank you once again for being a guest with us on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much. My last thing I will quote from poet Shelley. The sweetest songs are those that tell the saddest thoughts. Thank you, Benzi.